The story of South African politics is now wrapped in tales of witchcraft, bogus intelligence reports, and the gullibility of old men being manipulated by political scoundrels. I wish I were making this up, but the former uMkhonto weSizwe Party Secretary General had a lot to get off his chest at that explosive media briefing on Thursday. Floyd Shivambu wants to know if you, the South African voter, have the appetite for yet another political formation. He'll be consulting the public while still clinging to his MK party membership because resignation from the party is not on his agenda. Once we unpack Shivambu's political remarks, I'll also bring you updates on President Cyril Ramaphosa's trip to the G7 summit in Canada and NPA boss Shamila Batohi's grilling in Parliament. I'm Ziyanda Ngcobo, and this is your week in politics. Floyd Shivambu's political career seems to be at a crossroads, but he's not going down without a fight. He's now revealed what he claims is the real reason behind his unceremonious removal as Secretary General of the uMkhonto weSizwe Party.
The reason given in the national officials for my deployment or removal as Secretary General was that I want to overthrow President Zuma as the president of uMkhonto weSizwe. That is what was said. That all the work that we were doing as Secretary General of establishing structures and identifying leaders was meant ultimately at the removal of President Zuma as president of uMkhonto weSizwe. And as part of that reasoning, an extremely bizarre and fake intelligence report was produced, which was claimed to be a conversation between me and some people in the African continent, where it is alleged that despite raising money to remove President Zuma, I'm also accumulating supernatural powers to make people disappear.
Shivambu isn't just claiming to be the victim of a political conspiracy. He says he knows exactly who's behind it and what their end game is. He says Zuma's surrounded by political scoundrels who make up stories to get rid of perceived enemies while looting the party's coffers at the same time.
So the president of uMkhonto weSizwe, whom I dearly and so deeply respect, is surrounded by political scoundrels who opportunistically use his kindness, sometimes gullibility that comes with age, to write down fake intelligence report to influence him towards wrong directions. And the reason they do that is because they want to steal money from uMkhonto weSizwe. And they are doing so now.
Shivambu clearly had a lot to get off his chest, unleashing at Thursday's no-holds-barred briefing where he burned bridges with the ANC and torched whatever ghost of a tie remained with the EFF.
A substantial number of those say that don't ever try to join the ANC, and I fully agree with them. That will never join the ANC. It's directionless, it doesn't know what it's doing, it's in collaboration with the white system now. And there are those who said don't ever join or rejoin the economic freedom fighters because it's a cult. And I agree with them. There is no space for sound ideological reasoning, and there's no self-respecting person who can join both the ANC and the EFF. I agree with that fully.
The poor, the farmer.
But some of those who are still in the EFF say Shivambu has always been a problem and is a divisive individual.
I'm not being deployed by a cult. I know that EFF is a very democratic organization. I'm very happy, and everything. The problem was Floyd. Floyd was the big problem in the EFF. I can tell you right now, a divisive man. But I don't want to really get into that. Many of us are injured because of him. And because if he wants us to speak, we'll speak. But we had to stay in the EFF because of the lack of this organization.
I've got tremendous respect for President Zuma. I think that in the few close working relationships that we've got to maintain and work with now, I think I've learned more in the 6 months than I learned in the 10 years I was deputy president of uMkhonto weSizwe, of the EFF. I learned more as a member of uMkhonto weSizwe than I learned as a deputy president of the EFF. In terms of real politics and appreciation of both the domestic and the global politics much more thoroughly.
Despite Shivambu's warm words for Zuma, the feeling is clearly no longer mutual. A fuming uMkhonto weSizwe party leader had scathing words for Shivambu and the wrong things that he has done. Zuma stopped shy of mentioning Shivambu by name during the Youth Day commemorations on Monday, a noticeable shift given the once unbreakable bromance they shared after Shivambu's defection from the EFF.
You don't know. They're politicians and politicians. This comrade I've known from when he was very young in the ANC Youth League. That's when I picked him up that he is a real politician. He has politics which I defy as scientific politics. This young man. He's a young man to me, don't worry that he's big than me and all. Let us not take this organization as an organization that will come to make money. This is not the organization to make money. It's an organization to liberate South Africa. This one. That is why, if you look seriously, you'll realize that if we have one of us, ophumeceleni, asimnengi. Let me just tell you, abantu sebeke baba o Secretary General kule sebe u7 manje. Ngoba sidlala. Noma ngabe uzazi ukuthi umkhulu uyathandwa, uyikho konke, we don't care.
Staying with the theme of money, Shivambu revealed some startling figures about how much is being withdrawn from the MK party's bank account each month by these so-called political scoundrels. What he didn't make clear, though, is what exactly that money is being used for.
Withdrawal of not less than 7 million rand every month from the organizational coffers. That is what divided, and that is what, and we're talking about this because we raised it internally that stop what you are doing, because you're going to get the party deregistered as a political party, because there's no sound reason on what has been happening, and it's things that we can prove beyond any reasonable doubt, not because it's things that you can change.
As for his political future, Shivambu's adamant he's not resigning from the MK party. Instead, he plans to crisscross the country, consulting citizens about the possibility of launching a new political formation.
We're going to be convening the process of consulting the people of South Africa on the formation of a political movement that will be a true representative of the people of South Africa, and not a personal project, and not a group of friends project, not a cult, and not a fiefdom.
Political analysts mostly agree this consultative process is just a formality, as Shivambu has already decided to start a political party. But not everyone is convinced he will succeed.
Long live President Jacob Zuma, long live!
I think that a combination of haste and wanting to deal with ambiguity or not being comfortable with ambiguity sees him venturing into MK party, which he could have if he took time. He could have anticipated that this is how it was going to go. Many of us, and myself included, stated that whether or not he stays long in MK was not going to be a function of whether or not he's got talent to succeed there, but was going to be always a function of to what extent the Zumas were going to allow the building of an organization in ways that threaten their dynasty.
The National Prosecuting Authority has been under the spotlight recently, from their handling of high-profile cases right down to NDPP Shamila Batohi's startling comments about so-called infiltration. There are also their recent failures in the Timothy Omotosho, Shepherd Bushiri and Estina Dairy Farm cases. So this week, the National Council of Provinces got its turn to engage directly with the Justice Department and Batohi herself, diving into the core problems facing the NPA. But as Newzroom Africa's Valen Kirtley reports, Batohi told the Portfolio Committee that she would not resign.
Shortly after NPA head Shamila Batohi defended her position to members of Parliament, Justice Minister Mameloko Kubai reiterated the prosecuting authority's successors to the National Council of Provinces. Her remarks follow mounting criticism over the NPA's failure to secure convictions in high-profile cases, which the minister acknowledges has dented public confidence.
We do pay attention to what is being raised. And I think the recent one, if I may to utilize this opportunity, it came as a result of the Omodoso case and also with the extradition that relates to Ms. Cholota. I think if we look at these two cases, there are lessons to be learned out of them, and more work can be done, but support and providing in terms of oversight over some of the cases.
While political parties, including the MK Party, the EFF and Action SA, have called for Batohi's resignation, the minister says she wouldn't support putting the power of the NDPP appointments into the hands of Parliament.
On Wednesday, the Standing Committee on Public Accounts took its turn to grill the NPA, especially on cases referred by the Special Investigating Unit. Newzroom Africa's politics reporter Junior Kumalo has the details.
The National Prosecuting Authority will make another attempt to extradite Gupta brothers Atul and Rajesh from the United Arab Emirates. This was confirmed by the NPA's Investigating Directorate, Advocate Andrea Johnson, on Wednesday. She said despite their UAE counterparts not even entertaining the state's initial application, the NPA would now add more charges in a bid to secure the brothers' return.
So having taken that into account, the public interest and the interest of justice, we will submit new applications, but not just for the matters that we had applied for, which was Estina and New Lane. We are going to apply for extraditions in relation to other state capture matters.
NPA head Shamila Batohi says keeping witnesses safe and retaining senior advocates remains a major problem.
We cannot match salary scales that other entities like the SIU can actually give to the same skills, or SARS, the Revenue Service. Forget about going to the private sector. So we are finding that we are constantly bringing in people, training them, getting them to 2 years, 3 years. Then they get much bigger, opportunities in terms of bigger salaries.
MPs calling for Batohi's resignation accuse the NPA of failing to learn from its mistakes.
In the Omotoso case, the original prosecutors were removed from the case for incompetence. Was that taken under review? Was their removal taken under review? Because what confounds me is they've been reappointed to the Fort Hare case, which involves massive corruption, supply chain management infiltration, and assassinations.
Coming up after the break, we reflect on President Cyril Ramaphosa's trip to the G7 summit in Canada and the key discussions with his counterparts. It was also at that gathering where President Donald Trump was probed about the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran and America's response. Plus, we spoke to Iran's ambassador to South Africa about how the strikes could impact us here at home. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still watching Your Week in Politics here on Channel 405. President Cyril Ramaphosa has returned from the G7 summit in Canada, where Africa's critical minerals and climate change were placed high on the agenda. In the wake of devastating floods in several provinces in the country, our head of state says there was lots shared about best practices and funding of the effects of global warming.
Well, we've just concluded our visit to Canada to attend the G7 summit. It's been most meaningful for us, particularly as we are the president of the G20. We've had the opportunity to interact with a number of heads of states and government of various countries. And the issues that we put on the table is the issue of climate change and how important it should be treated by the global community with regard to our just energy transition, and also what we intend to achieve out of the G20 with regard to climate change, the financing thereof, but more particularly how we deal with the after effects of climate change, particularly the floods that we've been suffering from, where a number of our people have died, as well as the destruction of infrastructure.
Ramaphosa also had a bilateral meeting with the G7 host, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney, about aligning with South Africa's G20.
Mr. President, thank you. Welcome to Canada. Bienvenue au Canada. It is a great honor to have you here. As you know, we've met a bit in the past, and I've been a long admirer of your leadership of South Africa, and now your leadership of the G20. Yes. And the world is very much in your hands at a crucial time. And if I may say, from a Canadian perspective, the strength of the ties between our country are great, including down to the level of assistance in natural disasters. And South Africa has always provided us with support during times of difficulty, including with forest fires.
U.S. President Donald Trump slipped out of Kananaskis early amid speculation about the true reasons for his departure. His leaving coincided with an intensification of the conflict between Israel and Iran.
An end, a real end, not a ceasefire, an end. We're not looking for a ceasefire. I didn't say I was looking for a ceasefire. That was Emmanuel, nice guy. We're looking for better than a ceasefire.
As the conflict between Iran and Israel has ramped up, fears are growing over disruptions to key global shipping routes like the Suez Canal and Strait of Hormuz, are critical for oil and goods making their way to South Africa. Newzroom Africa's business reporter Ntokozo Khumalo explores how this could affect fuel and food prices in the near future.
The Middle East is once again a flashpoint for the global economy. There's growing anxiety and uncertainty as tensions between Iran and Israel grow. Some economists say the economic shockwaves are already making their way to South Africa.
All of our, life-serving goods and services, food, wheat, maize, oil and petrol prices, etc., has been financialized, meaning that it's up for speculation on the stock market.
Concerns have been raised that two key shipping routes, the Suez Canal and Strait of Hormuz, could face disruptions. This could lead to higher fuel and food prices. KPMG economist Frank Blackmore says similar patterns were seen during the Russia-Ukraine and Gaza-Israel wars.
And the result will be that depreciation of the exchange rate. And obviously that means then it takes more rands to buy the goods we need from overseas, and that is inflationary.
A recent Fitch Ratings BMI research webinar concluded that while both Israel and Iran will suffer, Tehran will likely feel the economic pressure first. The impacts would be felt globally, especially in emerging economies like South Africa.
In an exclusive sit-down interview with Newzroom Africa's Iman Rupeti, Iran's ambassador to South Africa accused Israel of violating international law by attacking nuclear facilities in his country. The diplomats asserted that the Iranian nuclear program is peaceful, but the International Atomic Energy Agency has raised concerns about the country's stockpile of uranium. The watchdog says it cannot verify Iran's intentions due to a lack of cooperation.
You know, I want to explain our position. Our activities is totally peaceful, and our nuclear peaceful activities is under the supervision, under the verification, and under the inspection of IAEA as the international body that can recognize and observe the activity of the member state. And there are cameras, there are inspectors inside Iran. They are always, they record our activities, and they declare several times there is not any diversion from peaceful activity to build a nuclear weapons.
The remains of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu were meant to have been repatriated on Wednesday after he passed away in a South African hospital in Pretoria 2 weeks ago. But the process was called off and Lungu's remains never made it to the Lanseria airport for departure. And as uMkhonto reports, the South African government had prepared a dignified send-off at an unknown cost to the taxpayer.
A private chartered flight was ready. A red carpet rolled, military guard of honor was on standby, and the South African army generals were at the scene waiting to give the former Zambian president a presidential send-off. But there was a delay. A casket never showed up at the airport. Minutes turned into hours. 5 hours later, the entire transportation of his remains to Zambia, his home country, was called off. There is no official word just yet in terms of what is causing the delay. What we know so far that the remains of the former Zambian president, Dr. Edgar Lungu, will not be returning to Zambia, at least not in the next 12 hours. We know that there is tension, or there were tensions between Mr. Lungu and the current government in place, and at some point Dr. Lungu had announced that he is going to be contesting the 2026 general elections. That decision led to the state then deciding to withdraw his presidential benefits, which included health insurance, which is something that might have led to Mr. Lungu coming to South Africa for medical health care. But we also know that there have been some disagreements between the Lungu family and the Zambian government. It is not yet clear then whether the delays are part and parcel of that ongoing tensions between the family and the state. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm uMkhonto at the Lanseria International Airport in Johannesburg.
And finally, while South Africans are experiencing more than their fair share of negative headlines, members of the judiciary celebrated the 30th anniversary of the Constitutional Court. The building, housed in the historic former prison complex Johannesburg Fort, has become a beacon of justice, democracy and human rights in the post-apartheid era. And we asked South Africans what the court means to them.
If ndingayicacisa kakuhle wena sisi wami, based on a crime, constitutional court, based on a crime eyenzeka South Africa, abona abantu bakhuselekileyo South Africa ngabantu abenza crime, meaning abenza abophula umthetho ngaphandle apha ekhaleni bakhuselekile because baba namalungelo amaninzi than lo muntu ulahlekelwa zizinto, meaning lo muntu umoshweyo. And then constitutional court still na umthetho wayo based on kubantu abanemali, not ucinezela aba bantu bahluphekayo, meaning mna
I feel like it should be a place whereby people's rights are heard and are actually evaluated. In cases of like rape, murder, human trafficking, which is actually something that we are dealing with as a country right now.
One of the first justices of the Apex Court, Albie Sachs, says, while the Constitution plays a huge role in today's South Africa, there are still missing pieces.
We take it for granted we can speak our minds. We couldn't in the old days. We'd be banned, silenced. We take it for granted you can see the films you want, write the books, you can move around. That didn't happen before. So the Constitution is there saying never again. That's important. The Constitution's there for workers. Workers have the right to fair labour practices. They go to conciliation. Thousands all the time are doing that, take for granted. So there's so many things like that that are just part and parcel of our life. They're very, very positive. We still have massive unemployment. We still have lots of racism. We still have inequality. The Constitution says South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. But it doesn't, the land doesn't actually belong to everybody here. So there are those problems. What the Constitution does is it gives us pathways to challenge the things that we don't like.
Chief Justice Mandi Samaya reflected on seminal judgments handed down by the courts. She says the Constitutional Court has diligently acted as a watchdog over the executive and legislative action to ensure accountability in governance and lawmaking.
The rendering of the judiciary to be fully independent would happen in 2 stages. The first one starting in 2013 with the establishment of the Office of the Chief Justice. And it was anticipated that the finalization of the process would take place soon thereafter. But it's dragged and dragged for well over a decade. But well, it's never too late to do the right thing. Here we are now, and moves are afoot. There is, as the President pointed out, there is already a joint committee in place. And we are working on the modalities of carrying this forward. And the judiciary, as it stated at its conference in December 2023, is in a hurry to attain its full independence, its institutional independence. So we are not going to allow the President and his team to delay the process.
That's a wrap from me and Your Week in Politics. Plenty of news, views and breaking news here on Channel 405. But for now, it's goodbye. Thanks for watching.